o'clock. Chester's not going to be here. He got sick last week and it's down in his chest, and his wife's also with him, so please keep them in your prayers, as well as like a lot of other people that are, bugs going around. I know there's some people that were texting me earlier today saying they had the flu or the stomach bug or whatever. They weren't going to be here this evening. Anyway, thank you for coming. We're going to go ahead and start with the usual prayer. Would anyone like to volunteer to do the prayer this evening? No volunteers. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Dear Lord Jesus, thank you for bringing us here together tonight. We pray for those who are sick. We pray that you would bring healing to them. We pray that you would watch over all of us. We pray that you would be present here with us and guide us in any decision making tonight. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
All right, next is Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I don't think I need to review the rules, because I don't know what they are, and y'all are respectful. So today, we just wanted to run through some items that were still open on the commission that we've been talking about. The commission's strategic planning retreat is March 5th and 6th. It's going to be down at the SVEC conference room. It's an open public meeting. I know a couple of our residents attended last year. I don't have the agenda or anything, but when I get it, I will post it. It usually doesn't come out until like maybe a week or two before. Real estate transfer tax share with county pending legislation. We talked about this before. So this has been rolling around in the legislature for, this year, is to take half of the real estate transfer tax and that goes to the state right now. It's not shared with the counties. Take half of that and bring it back to the counties. What the stumbling point, I guess, has been, or the sticking point, is who gets the money then when it comes to the county. So originally it was people were, legislature members up there were saying, we need money for roads, so let's give it to the highway department. And then the mayors were like, well, we need the money. So that's what it's been back and forth. It looks like it'll probably be split between the county, the mayor, and then the road department. That's kind of where it is right now. Budget committee. So if you all remember the charitable nonprofit, we don't have a policy for it. There is a law, TCA 59109, which basically governs how counties, it's called a donation, but it's your tax money that gets donated to 501s. It was brought up during a budget committee last year because it was noticed that many of the organizations that were on the list that the county's been given money to are not actually either not 501s, which disqualifies them, or they've had their charitable status revoked because they haven't filed their paperwork or that sort of thing. So that is, right now, it's the head of the budget committee, Jeff Barger. It's in his hands right now. I know the mayor's tried a couple versions. We've been following this pretty heavily. I know there are a lot of people that I've had several people, not just beyond even this district, that say we don't want any of our tax money going to these entities. Why is it going there? I just wanted to ask, how you all feel about it. Some of the organizations that money goes to the fire departments. This year they received 30,000 each. Last year I think it was 25. Year before 20. So the fire department's going to lose money. The rescue squad, like the senior center, there's a bunch of organizations in there that the Chamber of Commerce, which they get a pretty good line share. They've been getting $55,000 a year, but they've had their status revoked for a while. Their paperwork they weren't filing their paperwork. So, that's just to give you a snapshot of what's been going on. They come in, they've been getting their check, but nobody's really been paying attention to checking if qualify for it. How do y'all feel about any money going to these organizations?
I think they need to be, I think they need to follow the law.
Yeah.
They're
So,
required to do certain things,
Yeah.
check those off, and then they be eligible.
How much money is it?
this year, I think, I never read my budget, but it's about 20 organizations or so. It was, what the figure I remember, and it may not have been the final budget, it was like 360,000 if you total it all up, because 180 goes to the 6 fire departments, and then, 55,000 to 20,000, then, VFW gets some, the parks, the fair gets, I think they were 10,000. So it's about, when you add it all up, it's a pretty significant, you can do a lot of roads for that money. Right, a lot of miles of roads can get done for that money. So I think the way me and Chester feel about it is, yes, follow the law. Went down there the other day and I noticed, because I do get the expenditure report every month, I specifically asked for that so I know what the county's paying out. And there is one organization I can dig into deeper that may have gotten, if you look at the IRS website, they keep that fairly well updated, pretty regularly updates every few weeks or so when people send in the stuff. So I'm just going to drill down on one organization that may or may not be qualified. They weren't qualified when we passed the budget. If you remember, the motion came from District 1 not to fund, in both committee and on the floor, not to fund those entities that were not eligible this year. That's usually how most counties do. If you're not eligible, then you gotta wait till next year, get your house in order. And we got hammered on it. So
Does the commission vote on each one of these?
they voted as a resolution, yeah, as a group, yes. But in committee, they had the option, and I brought it up, and nobody wanted to second it, to pull the names that weren't qualified, because we were getting towards the end of the budget. Actually, it was the very last meeting before we present the budget, to the full commission for vote. And there was huge resistance, which I don't understand. Well,
What do you estimate that there's approximately 20 nonprofits in there? So how many of those are eligible right now? Yes.
I mean, how many are qualified to
Yeah,
receive by law? That's a good question. I'd have to,
I mean, it's a small number, or you think it's a big number?
how many?
I'm sorry, less than 20%.
Not eligible or eligible?
I think it's maybe a little bit, it's less than 50%, I would think, but I don't know, 20%, maybe, I don't know. I haven't looked at it in a couple months because I've been focusing on making sure that there's a policy and that our input makes it into the policy so they can then just have a checklist and they have to apply. So everybody else does, you apply for a grant, if you're asking people for money, you gotta tell them what you need the money for. There is an accounting at the end of the year, like what you spent the money on. Did you spend it on what you said you were going to spend it on? We don't have a policy like that. That's what the law says. The policy should just be lifted out of the law, make it a checklist, in my opinion. So,
I don't think that's been unreasonable.
no.
Is that
So,
something we could go, one of us could go look at? Or would it have to be a commissioner that looks at the records?
no, you can look at the records. The records are always, Publix. Which records? Oh, you mean in the
Organizations that are,
they're going to ask you to do a records request. Yeah, no, you can submit that.
Okay.
Remember when there's a form, they have 7 days to respond in writing. It says verbal, but I would ask for it in writing. You don't want anything verbal. But then, when they do present it, they'll tell you how much it's going to cost because they charge like 15 cents to copy it. But it is not unlawful for you to go look at the records when they present it and take your phone, take
Take
pictures
notes.
of it. Yeah, take notes and all that. So that's the way to do it. I went to the open records training here a few months ago that they had in Chattanooga, so it's pretty straightforward. Mineral severance tax. So I mean, you all know last year we pushed to get more money to the road department. Before you all had the coal tax here, because when coal was being mined, and that's actually how a lot of these roads got done throughout the county, from what I understand, from, people that I've talked to that live here.
That's what they're saying.
Yeah, for a long time. Travis, yeah. So then when that dried up, they get money from the state that gets divvied out to the counties, and then that's state aid money, and that's for primary roads. Like that did Henson Gap out here, so Lewis Chapel, another primary road on the inside of the highway. So the primary roads get done with state aid funding. They can't spend that on anything else unless they go and they can convert it to but they have to go petition the state for that. Anyway, the mineral severance tax, we passed it unanimously last year. The problem was paperwork, it's supposed to go to the Department of Taxation. The county blundered this thing, didn't send it to supposedly the right place, but the records I found is there was no receipt that was ever sent. So now here we are a year later. We could have, the estimate, every ton that's mined in any of these quarries, and even private quarries, but nobody checks them, just the big guys, the commercial businesses. If you look at how many tons, those of you who live at this end know how many trucks go out of here, in and out of here every day. And they come from all over the place. So you can see different names on those dump trucks every day. So it's a lot. The lowball estimate was about $125,000 is what the county would have collected. It's probably higher than that in reality, but there's no really good way to estimate that other than how many trucks do we think are rolling out of there? 20 tons per truck, 15 cents a ton. But anyway, the legislature changed, that was the limit, 15 cents per ton. The legislature passed new law this year, or they updated the law. They didn't pass a new law. And they said, well, counties are now authorized to collect up to 30 cents per ton, except it was phased in. So for fiscal year 25-26, which we're in, you could, get another 5 cents per ton, 20 cents. And 2030, I think, was the next 5 cents. And, that's the way. So anyway, there's a lot of pushback on this now, again, by other commissioners, which I don't understand. I went to the road meeting, which Eric, you were at a week ago. This was a topic, and they're talking about having not enough money for roads at the beginning of the meeting, and then the severance tax issue, they want to repeal it. Yeah, this is crazy. We're going to continue to stand on, we think that severance tax ought to stand, and we're not going to vote to rescind it. I mean, it's crazy, it doesn't make any sense. And, with that kind of money, Eric can do, he can get some things done with that kind of money. And if they pass that real estate transfer tax, I looked at how much we stand to get about $250,000 or so from that a year. So if we get half of that to the highway department, let's say that's $250,000, that's a lot of money.
What's the current amount that the road departments, the highway department spends annually on maintenance and repairs?
I don't have that unpacked. I can send you that because he reports it at every commission meeting. He gives us an update. Here's what I remember. Okay, so 1.9 million is about what he gets from the state. And then he gets gas tax. He gets 3 cents. That comes in every month. I don't remember what that total is, but I can get that to you if you want. By the way, anything I'm talking about, any records that I have, I always offer to give you copies, send them to you. There's a list back there. If you want any of this material, I'll send it to you.
But basically just getting that another couple $100,000 is not just a rounding error on the budget, but
No.
it actually is
It's real money.
a significant amount
Yes.
increase
Right.
from if he's working with 2.5 or 3 million, well, that's an 8% increase, which is,
Yeah, I mean, the only other way to fund this is that, and they already started this, which we were fighting at that meeting, I was, is they transferred $125,000 out of the county's budget this year to the road department. The way it was pitched to us during the budget meetings, it was to bridge, asphalt, because if he's, doing roads during the summer and stuff, for every increment of state aid, he's got to go request the next increment. Sometimes there's a time lapse. So that money, we were told, but I really think that was supposed to be, I heard that basically it was from Winter Rock. But now that's, the money I know has been taken out of the general fund. Eric this week told me he hasn't gotten it yet. It hasn't hit his books. I don't know where it's at right. Well, the check's probably sitting down there. There is some issues with Winter Rock that I'll talk about here shortly. But anyway, once the county starts funding the road department, what happens is maintenance of effort, let's talk about that real quick. So maintenance of effort means that if you fund the schools this amount this year, if you fund the sheriff's department this year, you must, at a minimum, continue to fund that amount or increase it. So every time we increase something, that sets the bar up. That's how much tax money you got that you have to commit to. It's great if you got growth, and that's where that's what your plan is based on, but it's kind of a dangerous way to play the budget game too. So that's what worries me about that. Highway department's not called maintenance of effort, it's called 5-year average. So whatever money gets, that the county gives to the highway department during that in the 5th year, you take an average, and that becomes the minimum amount that you must then fund every year thereafter. Did I say that right, Travis? That's the way I understand it, yeah.
And we're currently doing that now.
Well, yes, I guess, because once the money gets transferred, then that starts your first year. Then
And
you get
125 is a new figure, or we've been doing this?
As far as I know, we have not. All the other money that's gone is through grant. Yeah, he's gotten some grant funding that is a pass-through from the county, but that doesn't, I don't think that counts against us the way I
But that's
understand
not out of the general fund.
it. Doesn't come out of general fund. So if you feel strongly about any of these issues, this is going to be on the agenda for the January, I think it's the 26th. Because MLK Day is on that 3rd Monday, the meeting is now the 4th Monday in January. So
the committee comes up with that figure, I assume, and then the whole commission.
no, the way the budget works is it's presented by the county executive to the committee. And then we go through it, each of the department comes and briefs us on their budget. They don't always go line by line, we have a chance to ask questions, but that one, it was never pitched as, it was, you can projectize money from the county, just say, well, it's specifically for this thing, and I believe when I asked CTAS, they said that if you do it that way, it can be transferred and it won't count in your 5-year average, so you don't have to keep, giving. I keep asking that question, so I'm continuing to dig in on that. I'm not letting that one go. That's not, it was pitched differently to us, and I kind of feel like we were given a soul bag of this. Yes, sir.
One thing on the manual service tax, I was just gonna sit here thinking on this. I think we need to push really hard to keep that in place. The only reason to say that it directly affects our district
It does.
is limestone quarries are dime a dozen. Sand quarries, we have the only sand quarry within 200 miles here besides river sand quarries. Now, the sand that is being mined here is a high silica sand. It's very sought after. It's the only thing you can use in masonry, cement, and refined silica products. So 95% of what leaves this sand up here leaves the county. So if they're going to push back saying it's going to increase pricing, it's already leaving the county. It's 5% stays in house for SRM concrete and that. But we have a very special pit here that don't exist anywhere else. And it's eventually going to run out, and all they're doing is destroying the roads up here. And I tell you, on the corner down there, there's a lot of trucks that we hear every day, and everyone gets on 111 and on check.
Yep.
So I think on the Sanford side, it really needs to be pushed.
Yeah, so we need to, I mean, if people need to come to that meeting and voice their opinion on these topics. January 20th is an important meeting. It's an important meeting. A lot of these things are going to be discussed. Let's see, Emergency Services Committee. Is that it on that topic? Sorry, everybody short. Okay. Ambulance Service RFP. So I'm on that committee. We got a schedule today. We got the draft RFP, which I haven't looked at. It came in this afternoon. Happy to give you that so you can look it over. Then there's a Maury County, is it Maury or Marion? M-A-U-R. What is it?
Marion.
No, not Marion. M-A-U-R-Y. Maury. I say Marion and tell me it's Marion. I always get hammered for my accent. Yes. All right, Maury County. So that's like the gold standard. That I gave Keith months ago, Mr. Cartwright said, this is what an RFP looks like, because it's got everything in there, like by the book. You know, how the grading is going to get done, what the percentage of weights are, you know, what the specifications are, all that kind of stuff. So they're supposedly using that as as kind of the reference document. I haven't looked at this ambulance RFP. I did look at an earlier version. There are a couple things that I know I recommended they were in there, but we'll see what happens. What's important about this is right now Puckett's not a big ambulance company, although they're all over the place here, it seems. They're in this county, I believe, Marion County? I don't know. Is it Marion?
Marion.
But there's also AMR, which is like the big alligator down in Hamilton, and smaller, you know. So I'm going to push for this RFP, instead of just being advertised in the local paper, that it goes in a broader, you know, that they advertise it more broadly so the competition can bid on it. I mean, that's what you want. That's one of the issues is the pricing, right? How much it costs. And there's not a lot of transparency on how that's assessed. And they were sitting in a room when we talked about that, or at least Puckett was, and you know, I think it's like the way, you know, like stuff works around here. If you have competition, you know, we should be able to get a good deal, right? Somebody's going to come in with a nice, you know, proposal, and there's going to be transparency on the prices and everything else. The other thing that I asked for is, if you remember 2 years ago, we bought down behind the hospital, the emergency department, a property. It was 2-point-some acres, $400,000 the county paid for it. That was about the time it was my first meeting on the commission. That wasn't 2 years ago, I guess it was a little over a year ago. So I voted against it because there was no assessment of what the property was worth. $400,000 is a lot of money for that amount of acreage. So I just didn't think that, you know, without seeing somebody official appraise that, like an official appraiser, sign form, tell us how much it's going to worth. It was all verbal, and I don't accept that kind of stuff. So I voted against it. Chester voted against it. But it was supposed to be for Puckett to move in there out of the ambulance, where they're at now, next to the hospital. And there's a house there, there's a couple other buildings. The house is in good shape, but there's no garage there. But Puckett down in Saudi is in a storefront, and their ambulances are outside. So, you know, to me, that's up to the private company to figure that out. If they want to erect a building, I'm sure the county would not be opposed to that. I am opposed to the county spending a lot of money to erect a building for them on that property. The reason that if they vacated that, this was a big deal when the ambulance RFP, that whole debacle went through last year, is that the 5,000 square feet that the ambulance is currently in, it really boogered up the, you know, like, it wasn't clear to the bidders when that was going to happen, how it was going to happen. Was there a period of time that it was going to take to move from there? So like when you're bidding on that, there's a lot of unknowns. So that really, I think, complicated the RFP. Erlanger has no intention of spreading into that building, even though we require more services because of our growth. So that's my big contention, is that we remain tied to that so-called plan that the commission is sticking by, the majority of the commission saying, but now they're starting back out of that. I hear that they don't want to move out of that building. That doesn't make sense to me. So in the RFP, what I'm going to be looking for, and what I'm going to push for, is that we offer, that we offer the location of the property that we bought for $400,000, and it's up to them how they want to, store their buildings or whatever, right? If they want to erect like a carport or something on the grounds, okay. Maybe the deal is that the county, doesn't really charge rent or something. There has to be some sort of, but we'll see. To me, it's like you offer it out in the RFP, and then you see what the proposals say, when you get it back. So, any thoughts on?
Don't we pay a significant
Yeah,
portion?
it's like $262,000 a year. And I asked her that. I asked her, what's that money going for? And I was told, well, there's some people that can't pay for their ambulance bill, but, they're a commercial company. You figure that into your costs, like your rates, not your cost, but your rates.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds absurd that we're paying $250,000 to have them here to do business, that they still charge to do the business.
An outrageous amount at the end.
It is an outrage.
Yeah, I mean, so they operate inside Daisy. Do Side Daisy pay them to be there, or do they pay Side Daisy to be there?
That I don't know. I don't know. Right, but, if you get competition in there, one of the things that I brought up was like, we need transparency on the rates. You look at, some of the Hamilton County rates are on the internet. I couldn't find, kind of how these guys do it. They said it's all done in the back. So basically, the way I understand it is you get picked up in an ambulance, and there's two levels of care. There's like advanced life support or like kind of basic life support. There's two different rates. But then, depending on, what insurance you have and all that kind of stuff, there's some magic formula in the background that spits out your bill. That's the way it was explained to me. I don't consider that transparent. Okay, so, yeah, I have no idea where I'm paying that much money. That's been on my list to, knock down and say, well, that's a lot of money. The other explanation I was given by one of the commissioners is we used to run our own ambulance service here, and we got just the lawsuits for costing the county a lot of money, so that's what that goes to cover. Again, they are a private, profit-driven entity. They're going to figure that into their rates and their costs, so that's my position. That's business, period. Okay, so the timeline is January 12th, we're having a special emergency services committee meeting. It's going to be, advertised in paper, public meeting. And we're going to be talking about this draft RFP that I just got today. January 26th, we're going to reconvene again and vote on a final draft and then give it to the county executive who's going to issue the RFP. January 26th is the commission meeting, so the commission will vote on it. March 3rd, proposals are due. Then it looks like March we'll have another session and make recommendations for full commission vote. New contract takes effect July 1st because the old contract, the last option year, which we're on now, expires at the end of June. So that's the timeline. If anybody wants this information or these RFPs or even the Maury County copy, then I'm happy to give it to you. Okay. Road committee. I already told you, we're still trying to get that paperwork. They said they would expedite it and give it to us the next day, a week ago. All right. Henson Gap Road. Oh, I have that on here. Finish Henson Gap Road. So let me just talk about, I had a meeting with there. I'm just going to talk about where it's at. So last year we did the integrated road plan. Part of it was severance tax. Part of it was like getting grants. Some of it is on Eric. The rest of it was like, we did agree that we would push that severance tax when we did. And then we did a list of roads. He's worked through a lot of this list for this year, but I think the water project created more problems in the substation, which drove costs up. Plus, his costs went up Like, for example, asphalt that he uses 65 a ton up to 95 a ton. So these kind of not dreams, but, kind of goals for this year, like your mileage starts going down, what you can do when your money starts, when your costs start going up. But he did, quite a bit on this list. For next year, he's going to come to the next meeting here in January, which I have a long day on the agenda. But he's going to come to this meeting and talk to people about what roads, what he gave me right now is, and this is just, he's not completely, he's still got to do some more planning, but Snyder Loop, the back part there, that's real narrow and everything, he wants to come in there and do some work on that. Pete Green Road, that first quarter mile there is kind of pretty bad. Hardshell Road, I don't know where exactly he's talking about there. He's got some unfinished work, like Greenbrier was never finished when they did it several years ago. He wants to finish the reflectors that still aren't in. He wants to finish Henson Gap Road in the spring. Right now, the asphalt plant is shut down, so maybe nothing's going to happen. When you get into October and stuff, the weather starts being a factor. So that's what I have right now. But he'll be here to talk about, he'll have a little bit more time to plan. The commission votes on the road list every year in January. So I think our meeting here, commission meets on 26th, our next meeting, 4th Monday in January is the 22nd. So we'll have a chance to have him come to us and talk. And if anybody has any other issues with roads, please bring it up. The way he does it, well, he can explain this to you, is like he kind of looks at the worst roads. So, but you can ask him kind of what his, how he does that. Winter Rock Road update, okay. So at the road meeting last week, the county executive is he's basically saying that like 1.8 miles is what was on the road list as, that is a county owned that the county has to maintain, the first 1.8 miles. They found some documents, and it's kind of crazy, but back in 2010, there's the road list that's in the minutes that shows that not just the 1.8 mile, but then another 1.9 miles behind, like all the way up, basically 3.7 miles of Winter Rock is on that list. In other words, it's been on the road list that much of Winter Rock is county. If you look at that second part of it, it's a tar and chip road. This one is asphalt, that first portion. But then after that, it's all tar and chip. And then there's like a private piece of the road, right? Which is private. That was damaged when the county executive took dirt from the SVEC project and ran it up to the so-called tower site, but then built another road to access the tower site through several properties up there. So I know this is hard to visualize, so maybe next time I'll bring a projector, but what's going on with that is they're trying to say that whole thing is county road. That second piece of it, I think people realize that whole part of the mountain someday will be developed all the way starting here to Sigma, right? There's tons of property up there. If you've been up there in the last year or so, it's been divided off into lots. There's people that are waiting to build up there. So I think the question for us, my question was, who's going to pay, first of all, who's going to pay for the damage that, and the county executive admitted during that meeting last week that he authorized those trucks to go up there. So to me, I don't think the taxpayers ought to be on the hook for that. He's bonded, he has insurance. I know they were up there this week. He hired a contractor to fix parts of that private road, threw a little gravel down, and there was some dirt that was moved to cover these large holes that were there right on the river's property. So that's where it was. I drove up there a couple times this week. So to me, I don't know where that money came from, but I'm pretty sure he didn't hit his bond. So my argument's going to be, and I've been saying this, that I don't think it's fair for the taxpayers to foot that bill. Maybe that's where that $125,000, some of that went, I don't know. This just happened in the last week or so, so I'll dig into that. But how do you all feel about taxpayers paying for that? Yeah, okay, that's the way I feel. All right, future maintenance, I just went over. Personnel committee, we haven't met yet. We've asked, and there's no date set. I'm on personnel committee. I'll ask Mr. Johnson again when we're going to meet. This is about, we can't get into the day-to-day operations or, with the department heads, the other elected officials, we as commissioners. It's just, we can't do it. The law says we can't. But personnel policy, there should be a county level kind of across the board for things like FMLA, things at the federal mandate. And I know our policies have not been updated for years. And then the department heads, how they do their salaries, bonuses, hours, that kind of stuff, that hasn't been viewed for at least probably almost 20 years. So it's time for a revision. The other issue that I had with it when we were voting on the budget is arbitrary raises. Let's give them 3%, no 6%. Somebody said 10%. The elected officials, the state, down to the county commissioner, like everybody from the governor down, sets the rate of how much, they get a raise for this year. It was 3%, which is basically, inflation rate, right? So to me, I thought that was fair, okay? Unless the county, unless the people in those, in those, under those elected officials, don't already have, like some of them are they getting underpaid? Because we don't have pay scales here. And there's no uniform way. They haven't gotten together and figured out, well, for this job, here's the job description, here are the requirements, here's the salary scale. So that's what I was advocating for. It's been advocated for in the past years ago. We just haven't, people don't want to do it. I don't understand it. Because I don't know how, like I sit there and, somebody says 6%, which is what we gave most of the people this year, except for the ones that got bonuses, they got 4%. So to me, it's like, it's very arbitrary. I would decide that. And I don't vote for that. I was voting for, I wanted a revision. Let's sit down and look at the policy and see what needs update. We had a training on it too, and the person that trained us said that we probably need to look at it. But then the arbitrary raises, it's kind of like shooting in the dark sort of thing to me. So, yeah, I'm another bad guy on this one. Opioid Committee, third round grant update. We're still trying to get the contract out. It's been a commission meeting voted on this 17 November. It's in the final phases, I guess, to go to contract with the entity that the commission voted on. There was also an opioid overdose response plan tabletop exercise. What this is we're the second county that's doing it in our region. The health department pretty much runs this. It's basically like it's almost like a FEMA thing, right? Where the court, like you have a big spike, 10 people show up at the hospital and they all overdose, maybe there was a big party or a bad batch of drugs came into the county, so all of a sudden you have this huge spike, people are dying. That's what it's designed to do. It coordinates, police departments, emergency room personnel, ambulance, just coordinates who does what. And then who's in charge, who reports to them, that sort of stuff, and how do you get ahead of the spike. Grundy County had this happen it was May this year. And we got a heads up, but I can tell you it was very disorganized. It was like phone calls, hey, who's in charge of this? I don't know, we don't have anything written down, sort of thing. But, we try to get naloxone distributed here and then, throughout the county during that, but there was nothing coordinated. Sorry, I have to go to this because I forgot to print off the back of this. All right, so the next thing is growth issues for Lewis Chapel. Okay, water board. You all know we're not represented. We're the only district or the only water service here is by Northwest Utility. That's who provides it here, right? So we have no representation on the board. None. We've been battling this for a while. Last year we submitted 3 resumes. Nobody got chosen. This year, there were 3 openings on the board. And so we submitted 2 people, raise their hand, 2 resumes went in. The first list, like basically what they do, so for each of those open positions, a list of 3 names the current board members pick. And it was the 3 members that were, at the end of their term, they wanted to stay on. So they just took the 3 names and rotated them through each position. Like the guy who was number 1 on this list was now, number 2. They just took the 3 names and, there was nobody new on the list. So Mayor Womp this last week rejected 2 of those lists. It goes to the mayor of the county where the utility is based in. Even though it's a multi-county district, okay, it's Bledsoe, Hamilton, and Sequatchie, who they service. So in my opinion, they should have, so I dug into this a little bit, actually a lot, got a hold of their bylaws, and then also what the law says. The law is extremely complicated the way it's written. But the bottom line is that, it looks like we should be represented. The bylaws do not have a process written into them, or do they discuss multi-county, how the process works for multi-county. I think that's a big issue. So, then Tom and I close. I spoke to Adam this afternoon. He's been dealing with a big water main break for the last 3 days down in Saudi, but I know he got notified last week, so did the board. He was supposed to be here tonight, but he's not going to be here because he was going home to rest. We're still in the running, I guess is where it's at right now. They owe 3 more names on each of those positions back to the mayor, and he can either reject them. They're supposed to, there was about maybe 6, our 2 resumes plus Adam told me maybe 6 more that were already in the pool. So that's the bank that they should be choosing from. So that's like 8. We're still in the running. Bledsoe did not submit a resume, so it's just the 2 from Sequatchie and whatever we got from Hamilton. So fingers crossed. He also told me that the state approved a grant, like $6.4 million to do road work here in our district, or not road work, but water. So that's a big deal. That's a lot of money for. Now they don't know, like when the state does that, then there's like meetings to determine how much of it comes to the, how it's split up, how that money's going to come into the county or to the utility. Is there a matching part of the grant? How much is the utility match? Sometimes it's pretty low for them. I know the last one was like only 15%. How much does the county have a match? That kind of stuff. So that meeting has not yet happened, but staying on top of this issue is, I think it's important. You all said it was important to have representation, especially with all the growth that we're having around here. I got another request last week for somebody that wanted, they bought a property and they wanted to see if there was an extension down their property. And I kind of gave you here's how the process works. It's really up, like if your neighborhood, if the water line stops here and you bought property over here, you're going to pay for that. That's the way it works. Or you get a bunch of neighbors that are in that, if the development, if there's going to be more houses built, you can get together with those neighbors and then you can all split up how much that extension costs. I know the county sometimes does. I know Mr. Cartwright decides where some of these projects go. We need to be pretty vocal with that, and where, we need to be aware of these decisions that are being made. Because I think, it's our district, and it needs to be coordinated. Like this last project, Eric was going to do it in Saget. He was getting ready to do it in the spring, and then he found out that this time last year that water companies, doing all this work, right, laying this line that they did. So there's got to be a lot of coordination in the future. Infrastructure is a big issue. These are all going to be issues, the planning meeting that we're going to do on our own, and it will be facilitated, is January 10th. It's a Saturday. We'll start at 8 to 12. I mean, if you want to participate in the planning, things like the water issues, road issues, anything else that's associated with, growth here up on the mountain in our district, please come to that meeting. What that does is it provides us, me and Chester, input when we go to that countywide strategic planning meeting in March. So I think that was pretty important. We'll bring those. Let's see. That's Sheriff's not here, mobile lawn. Yep. Yeah, well, 15 minutes.
Oh, okay.
I shortchanged Angie last meeting. I forgot to put it on. So for people that don't know, Angie's our representative. There's two in the county, but she's currently the only one that, she's part of the Southeast Development District, which we're in, I forget what the triple is.
It is the Southeast Tennessee Advisory Council on Aging and Disability. And I did have, hello. I did have some numbers that basically showed just how, here it is, how effective the mobile walk has been.
So for those people that don't know what the mobile walk is, it's a mobile van that came to the county basically last year. And a decision was made, we wanted it up here, like either here or across the street at the Dollar General. It's free medical services. They have doctor and nurses on board, right? A lot of lab services. I don't want to get into that because that's her thing, but that's what it is. It's a mobile medical van, free of charge.
It's a free, well, we don't use free.
Yeah.
It's a no cost. It's a no cost service primarily for older adults, which is 62 and above, and to caregivers. And right now it is in 10 rural counties, Sequatchie being one of them. And just to give you just really quickly what the numbers were for this period, the 6-month report, that's from April to September of 2025, keeping in mind that this just launched in April of 2025. Ray County had the most patient visits, 164. Sequatchie County was second. We had 107 patient visits to Mobile Walk during that period. And which is great. That means that the Sequatchie residents are seeking medical advice. We like that number because what Linda is trying to accomplish, what we are trying to accomplish is to have, as Linda said, a second site for Mobile Walk. Right now, Mobile Walk is at the senior center down in Dunlap, Sequatchie County Senior Center. And if we can show that there is enough need that we have to have a second location, we're looking at where, the best spot here on Lewis Chapel, in our area. And I will, be working closely with them and with Linda and can keep you.
How are they determining need?
It's the numbers. It's the
That show up, or so how would they do that in advance of positioning the unit up here?
I'm sorry, how would they what?
So are they, in order to put it up here, do
Well,
they have to show need ahead of time? I don't know how they would estimate.
I think they would go off of the past numbers is how they're going to, but and then they also have to determine if we have a space available. So we'll be working on
There's the
that.
president of the board of the community center, so.
Okay, but we'll talk more.
He's
about
saying,
that.
yeah, we have the
Okay.
space.
And then the other thing that I wanted to bring up is if, and again, this is a no-cost service, regardless of residency, regardless of insurance, non-insurance, again, priority being to those 62 and above and caregivers. And I learned at our last meeting that it also, MoMOC also provides hearing tests. And if that hearing test, if you have a hearing test and it is determined that there is some type of an impairment, they will take it a step further. All the way up to and including assistance with or free hearing aids, no cost to the patient. hearing aids, depending upon eligibility. So this is a service that, I can imagine there are people out there that, aren't aware of it. So I'm just letting you know so we could maybe spread the word to people that this is something that is available. And if anybody has any questions afterwards, I have a phone number to call to get more information. And that was it.
We can post on several sites if you have something like we have in the past, like, like what you just said, maybe just post that so we can get it out to more residents.
Okay.
And we can also, I guess we've got 5 sites that we post up here, so it's got pretty good reach right now.
Okay.
A lot of people though aren't on Facebook, or some of the people that would need this service, so that's just maybe a word of mouth. There's one other thing, but they will also, when people go in there and it's beyond like whatever the mobile lock can do, they will also connect them, point them to where to go.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, it's like an initial point of contact, because one of the things that was bore out during the 6-month period is the number of people that have gone that haven't had medical attention in years. There were some people that had not been seen by a physician for 10 years or more, which is, it's mind-boggling. But now we have this available to us. And I would just encourage, again, just to get the word out, and I'll be working with Linda, but it is something that's available to us. So I hope that it will reach those that are in need.
There's also, they say, 62 and above, but there's a pecking order too. They will accept 18.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
yes.
But the primary focus is on aging, disabled people, but they will accept 18, right?
18, yes. They have to be an adult.
How many times a month do they come to the county?
They come to Sequatchie County the first Wednesday of every month, so it's once a month. And they are there from 9 to noon Central. You can make an appointment in advance, or I believe you can still just arrive. And if they have the time during that time frame, then you will be seen.
Before that second unit is decided on, is there a chance that they rotate that to the communities versus just setting up in one place? So I know there's a lot of people up on the mountain that can't get off the mountain. That would utilize it if it wasn't here, and that might be skewing the numbers for done that, but not necessarily outlying areas.
I don't know. That's a good question. I could certainly ask.
They kind of give you a sample taste of the areas and.
Right.
That's what we propose, remember, at that meeting? Right,
I
that's
thought I
right.
had to do a test and just kind of see if there are numbers there, if the numbers reduced.
If you wouldn't mind proposing that to
Okay.
Stephanie.
Yes, and I do know that, in fact, that was something else that reminded me, thank you, that Mobile Mock has now joined forces with SEPRA. So they are working directly with SEPRA to get, to assist people with transportation up and down the mountain.
And Cetra has, I saw it because I'm taking physical therapy. I just had knee surgery a couple weeks ago, but they have now, it's like it's an on-demand service. You pay like $4 each way. Sounds like a lot of money, but it's a dedicated unit. You call them, you make, I guess, an appointment, pick you up. It's not like the Cetra bus, because sometimes you may make an appointment, but they may not show up. Kind of depends on where they're at. Right? They're not as, the schedule's not as rigid. But they have that now. It's a car. I guess I don't know how many there are, but I saw a poster. Yeah. So, there are ways for residents to get there if they don't have their own transportation. But we can always, I'm sure the community center can even think about other ways. Like carpools, get volunteers, I don't know, I'm not suggesting. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Angie's been doing a fantastic job. She's the only one in the county that's doing this. And she has a very reliable right hand that also does Meals on Wheels and making health functions at the senior center. Jeff, thank you. We appreciate it, what y'all are doing. Okay, so next meeting is January 22nd. Not what was in the agenda. I guess I got distracted when I put in the 8th. Elections are coming up in 2026. This is like when everybody's getting replaced. All right. August is the general election in May, I think she told me May is the primary. They're going to primary all of us, which is kind of funny, because the state only decides to go down to the county executive level. But there will be a primary for every elected official in the county, from what I understand. And that's going to be in May. The cycle starts, the packets can be picked up December 22nd, as early as December. This is like if you want to be a candidate, if you want to run for office, any of the offices, you can pick up a packet, it tells you like all the stuff that you need to do as a candidate, what the rules are, and you need to get a petition signed. 25 is the minimum signature, but those signatures will be scrutinized, I can tell you, intensely by the election folks downtown. And a lot of the signatures get kicked out because people may sign your list and they use their nickname on the mountain. You know, instead of the exact name that they use to register as a voter. So a lot of signatures get kicked out for that. Or they're in the wrong county, or, you know, there's a bunch of stuff. Yeah, I know what time it is. I still got 2 minutes. So if anybody wants to run for any position, you know, please look into it. You know, somebody's got to do it. And, you know, it's an important thing for us to be represented up here. And I think you all get the feel for like the valley is the, you know, the most focused, is the population center here. But we are also a rapidly growing community up here, both residential and commercial business. So, and the growth that's going to come along in the future is going to continue to be like, you know, bring a lot of challenges. So that always translates to, you know, how tax dollars are collected and spent and how much too. So that's why it's important. We need to keep up a good fight for all these, and I appreciate all the support. I know I get hammered a lot at the committee meetings and the planning commission meetings if you watch the tapes or if you attend, but that's my job, is to represent you. And I'm on stand up. You know, I had 24 years in the Navy, also Pentagon job, so I mean, to me it's like, okay, I'm gonna be on me again. You're not gonna get any skin off of me. So, yes, sir.
For the quickly, sir, on the infrastructure you talked about, that January 26th, that was for the yearly severance tax?
No, that's the commission meeting, but there will be, you know, I know that it was on a road committee meeting last week. Is that what we were there?
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah, so it'll come up again. They got to do something with it.
Just so I'm clear, when it was originally voted on the county fund, did not get paperwork put in the right place, but it is now in the right place.
Paperwork is at the Department of Taxation. I know that because I checked with CTAS several weeks ago.
And when y'all originally done that resolution off the head of 18 city commissioners, how many voted yes?
16 were present, 16 voted. It was unanimous. The 16 that were present pushed it through. There wasn't any debate. They came out of committee. There was a little bit of, no, even in committee, because it was the same time that we did the road right away. That one there was a lot of debate on, a lot of jerking around on that one. But the severance tax, you know, everybody was for it. There's a lot of commissioners that I don't think will bend on that. They really think that the severance tax needs to be collected.
Well, if there's shortcomings on the road, we can't afford not to collect.
But yeah, I mean, I understand what the pushback is, but, well, it's politics. All right.
Thank you.
Yes. Anything else before we break? I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Until we see you again, please be safe, your families enjoy, and thank you very much.
And the state is important.
Yeah, we got to follow up, Lewis Capital Board meeting. There's just a couple of minutes, still on state.
There's going to be, perhaps there's not that Santa Claus on the mountain. He's going to be building.